Hello, and welcome to episode 6D of Flesh and Pod. I am your host, Logan, and with me, as always, is Darick Oswald. Charmer, what did you get up to in Flesh and Blood this week?
Well, since this is episode 6D, I figured I should get up to 6A, 6B, 6C. So
what does that even mean?
I don't know. When you said 6D, I was like, did he say 6D?
No, a 6T, I guess.
But I heard that crack, by the way. We're already at a 1B show, and we haven't even got through the intro yet. So
yeah, we started, yes, because
we
I had one
like
beer
an
that
hour
was
ago.
Yeah, I had one beer that was 3/4 down, or that was like sorry, I had 3/4 left. I'm like, okay, that's my first show beer. This will be fine. And then you hopped on, and for the last 30 minutes, give or take, we've just been talking about everything else. And in that time, I drank beer 1. So this is beer 2, but I will crack another beer so that we have the specific 2-beer show. But at any rate, go back to what you were talking.
So what I got up to this week was playing in a Pro Quest. It went. I will not be taking questions at this time. And then I went to the Realm Pro Quest in Mansfield, Ohio. I got up at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday, drove for 4 hours, and then cast the entire event with Jacob, Keith's brother, who had never been on a broadcast before. And I love you, Jacob, but it showed.
Don't quit your day job, buddy.
No, I mean, he did great. He kept saying on breaks, he was like, man, it's hard. Like, I don't think I understood how hard it was. And then I got up here and I just kept freezing. And I was like, I know, buddy, it's okay. You're doing your best. But I thought that overall that event actually went really well. We had some very interesting matchups. We had internet problems on and off because there was a massive snowstorm that I also had to drive through when I was getting there. They said they were supposed to get like less than half an inch of snow. And by the time I walked out to leave the venue, there was a solid like 5 or 6 on my car that I had to scrape off. So that was fun. But the Realm Pro Quest was fantastic. They do it amazing there all the time anyway. They had just shy of 60 people. Keith gave out a ton of extra door prizes, as well as obviously there's the LSS prizes, the gold foil and so on and so forth that people won. But like I said, we had great matchups on that broadcast. There was an Arachne that we got to have on the broadcast, which I was kind of shocked for. Both kinds of dashes, the hyper defensive kind and the aggro kind. We had a Rhinar that popped off for a win. Just all sorts of fun stuff. So overall, it was a great weekend, minus my performance, but I had a lot of fun with Flesh and Blood. So that's what I got up to.
Can we talk about your performance?
Yes, we can. It was okay until the performance enhancing drugs that I had taken wore off. Okay. I needed the extends for Flesh and Blood.
Jesus.
Do you remember those?
I did. Well, I mean, I never used them, but I am aware of them.
The commercials. So for you Zoomers who are probably too young to even understand what like regular cable TV is, you have to understand there was a time that if you watched Comedy Central in like the late 90s, early aughts,
yep,
after like 10 o'clock, every commercial on the entire network, doesn't matter what Comedy Central was airing. Usually for me, it was like the Dave Attell show is what I was watching, but then
or Duckman.
Duckman. But there was only 2 commercials ever after like 10 o'clock. It was Girls Gone Wild. And again, if you're a Zoomer and you don't know what that is,
don't Google it.
Not something you should be Googling. And then it was Extends, specifically, like that was the brand. It was Extends, the male enhancement, whatever. And the reason I remember this, the reason that this memory is like encoded in my brain is because when I very first started playing World of Warcraft, I had an enhancement shaman that I named Extends because it was the male enhancement shaman. And I rocked that name for like a year until somebody reported my name and Blizzard made me change it. And I was so upset. God. But that's why it's burned into my memory, because of that World of Warcraft character. So Anyway, my performance, it failed because I didn't have my extends.
Okay, yes.
We're so off the rails.
I can confirm that the Comedy Central commercials were specific to exploiting intoxicated women and dick pills. Those were the two things that you could be death and taxes on at Comedy Central after South Park's first airing. From there, it was just, that's all it was. And yeah, you actually called an 800. Okay, there used to be these things called phones, not cell phones, but they are phones that were attached to like a wall. And then there was these things called toll-free numbers, because it used to cost you extra money to call places that weren't close to you. And so when you placed these calls, you either paid a fee per minute, or there were numbers that were specifically without tolls. And tolls are the per minute fee. So you called a toll-free number, and then you're able to order your exploitation videos and dick pills that way, because the internet had not really come around to that being the best way to do things yet. Right. It was all GeoCities and proto Nancats. What did I do? Oh, I did Armory, which was we drafted Tails. Oh yeah, we drafted Tails. Or no, so we do Tails sealed. That's what we did. That well, it was good. It was a good box. We opened some gas, but the triple ball lightning deck was the one that won, to no one's shock at that point in time. 2 reds and a yellow.
Everyone's shock. It sounds like somebody well, got lightninged an awful lot, but.
I played in the Minneapolis ProQuest at Battleground Cafe. Great venue, great people. Yeah, they did a fantastic job. They had capped it with one of the better reasons I've heard for capping an event, and that's because they just didn't know what to expect, and that they would be able to handle a larger amount of people, so they capped it for staffing. And I talked to them afterwards. I didn't specifically ask them about it either. They just basically said, yeah, we're not going to cap the next one. I think that we have a good staff here and we understand what's being asked of us, and that we'll be fine. Well, if we're over 32 people, we'll just get more judges and we'll be good. I'm like, yeah, you can fit. I mean, that place can fit an easy 80. So they definitely didn't need to cap it, but I understand why they did. No shame in that. They also, it was like $20 to play with pack per win, boxes into 8 packs and into up in top 8 and plus into a box, plus the LSS pricing. I mean, just did everything right. Very much so appreciated. I did not do everything right and went 1-4. So we won round 1 like we were supposed to, but I did it by being ultra greedy and going to 2 against a Rhinar, which you never go to 2 against Rhinar. That is not what you do. And my opponent was gracious enough to never draw their reckless swing to kill me before I just, snowballed enough damage to end it. And then my deck decided that was the point in time that I need to be punished, because the next 2 games I didn't draw a single Channel Mount Heroic. Not one. And it was in the Briar Mirror where my opponent did have a turn 2 Channel Mount Heroic, which that was good enough. And then in a Kano match, which you have to have Channel Mount Heroic or you don't win. So that was that ended my tournament pretty quickly, but I got to hang out with Flake a bit. He was there and playing, and he managed to make top 8 with his take on Oldham. He played very well. Watched quite a bit of his play and was very impressed with how he acclimated himself. He played a Lexi match that was crazy good, and I was very impressed with how he handled a lot of the situations and breakpoints that Lexi can present, and it was very tight and it was fun to watch. And then I think that's about all I did until we got to here. It's been weird for me because I have a lot of work things going on. I keep thinking I'm going to miss an event. And when I think that, it turns out I end up turning a weird corner, and it looks like I might actually get one last crack at a ProQuest this weekend. I'm not holding out hope, but it's a potential. So that, hopefully I get another bite at the apple, because I did not qualify. I did not have a good season. I would be switching decks. I've been trying to put in some more time because I think that that's my problem right now is I don't put the time in, and I lose to people who do. And I play high variance decks because they punish you less for not having put the time in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Fair. Congrats to Flake on that Lexi thing, because I will say that's ultimately what ruined my tournament hopes for my ProQuest. I went to the wire to the point where we had a draw with Alexi because it is not as easy to fatigue them as you might think because of the ways that they can present damage. But also mine, my opponent happened to be running Remembrance, so mine went to the wire because I had to survive 4 3 of a kinds, and we were still going after that. So yeah, like that is not the necessarily easy matchup that you might think because of the bow and them not having a real weapon, blah blah blah.
So what I think as Flake put it, when I asked, what the hell happened over here, he said, and I quote, he drill shotted my nuts off because there was a counter on his shield and a counter on his tunic, and those were just dead to blocks. Like it eliminated that from the game. And I kind of learned this because I had talked to Dagan about Oldhim, and I was like, I felt like I was doing something wrong because I lost to Lexi. And looked at me, he's like, you got drill shotted, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you stopped winning at that point. Like, if they get a drill shot off that they can pump that you can't block out, they just take all the value out of you. And that shield, that plus one block makes your crown worse because the crown blue pitch is now only preventing 1. Like, there's a lot. And Lexi's not as easy as it used to be. Like, oh, I just thought I was dumb. So this girl behind me, Lexi, she's right here, is she's a lot better than she used to be.
Yeah, she's pretty good, it turns out, into Oldhim now. So I had the same thing happen to me. Specifically, it was on pumps, and like I even had D-reacts and they went over it. They drill shotted my shield, and then they also hit the tunic at some point. But the big one for me was they hit my Crown of Seeds as well, because they were running the Ice Fuse, and they caught me. Yeah, so they caught me with Expose when they had just made me discard due to Insidious Chill. So to give you the idea of what I survived here, just to bring it to a draw, no tunic, no rampart anymore because it had the counter on it, survived 4 3 of a kinds, and then they kept like running attacks, and then they would end their turn with putting an Insidious Chill out. So then when they would fuse their Chilling Ice Veins, it was like, doesn't even have to have the on hit. I was already paying tax twice because I had 2 in play. So I paid the tax twice because I was going to lose the cards anyway, but then I have no resources left in hand. And then they were like, oh, by the way, Expose, I'll hit your crown. So like we were just, I mean, we were in the thick of it. It was a slugfest. It would have been a hell of a game if we were untimed. But unfortunately, this was, at this point, this was round 3, and draws are just awful. Draws ruin your day.
So you're playing Oldhim?
I was playing Oldhim.
You switched?
Yeah, I was playing Dagan's list.
Okay.
I think that it was well positioned, but I should have just went with my gut and still play Bravo, because when I looked at the field, so the problem is I switched to Oldhim because I felt like Oldhim had a better matchup into Icelander, and I expected people to like break it out, even though we don't necessarily have a lot of like locals that pilot it. And then when I went and I walked around, we had like just shy of 40 people at that one, and there was only 2 Icelanders. So I should have just stuck to my Bravo game plan, because there was a lot of ninjas. Like I told you, there in my local meta, there's just a lot of them. And I would have probably been in a much better position. So if I do play this weekend, I will probably rock back Bravo again.
Yeah, it turns out that that Ninja's very, very popular as we look at the metagame analysis from week 1. Week 2 is not up yet, or else we talk about that too. But We got plenty. We delayed it long enough to get plenty of an info dump right before we started fucking recording, because that's usually we're turning a new leaf at Flesh and Pod. We're going to actually have the information when we record, rather than record and then the information comes out. Yeah. We're trying to turn a new leaf here and become more nimble to the inner workings. No, it's bullshit. It was the most convenient time. So Parker Brown, aka Breezy, for anybody that is on the Twitters, is doing guesting on the Mothership with analysis of the metagame breakdown each week. So in week 1, we had Fi as the most played hero, followed by Icelander, Dash, and Dromai, which is pretty interesting in and of itself, as Oldhim did not crack the top 4 played heroes. However, the most top 8s are Fi, Icelander, Oldhim, and Dromai, so Dash gets bumped out. And then the real thing is that Oldhim won 30 pro quests while not being one of the 4 most played heroes, which is tops on the week, with Icelander coming in second at 25, Fi with 21, and then Dory and Dash each with 11. So Dromai got worked over by the Oldhims, it seems, but is doing a very good job and doing God's work of just keeping Kano from killing everyone. Thank you, Dromai, for at least doing that. And I'm interested that it is interesting to me that Dorinthia came in with 11 wins. But Oldhim definitely dominated. Captain No Bad Matchups came into No Bad Matchups and did a lot of winning. So I guess that's not too surprising to me, but I do get to watch somebody who is a very, very good Oldhim, one of probably the best Oldhim players out there on a weekly basis. So my knowledge of how good Oldhim is pretty well rounded at this point. It is impressive to see a lot of people coming in with that list, and also just other variations on the theme, and a lot of wins. That's a lot of wins in week 1.
Yeah, it is a very high conversion rate, but I'm not necessarily surprised by that, because Oldhim, I think Oldhim is very interesting because he rewards you for putting in the reps. He actually has a pretty high skill ceiling when it comes to piloting him, and people talk about how hard it is to play Icelander a lot, and I think Oldhim is also similarly there. I just think that Oldhim's floor is a little bit easier to notice, because you're like, okay, well, there's all these defensive options, so it's like in your face, whereas Icelander's is a little bit more nuanced. But the reality is I think piloting either of the ice heroes right now, there's a big skill gap between the good and the great players, and it comes down to understanding your matchups and timing. And that's why I say if you put in the reps, then you will get those high conversions. Knowing which matchups that you need to run Rampart versus Stalagmite, knowing when you're ice reacting, knowing, when you're Icelander, when do I want to donate the Frostbite? When do I need to do this, do that, right? Like both of the ice heroes right now, they thrive on interruption, but not just like, don't get me wrong, Channel Lake Frigid is an insane card, but it's not just like I play CLF and then I auto win, right? It's not that kind. They're at their best when they are doing things in targeted windows. And so it takes, in my opinion, a healthy number of games before you start understanding the real windows of opportunity and how to exploit them. So it's not a surprise to me, for example, that Dagon has already won 2 pro quests because he's very good on Oldhim. He has put in the reps. And again, while Icelander is seen as difficult to play, I think that playing Oldhim incredibly well also takes a lot of effort, because it's a bit more nuanced than it looks.
Yeah, I'm going to take that a step further. I'm going to say that all 3 ice heroes have a level of nuance to them, because if you look at Lexi, the very good Lexi players win with Lexi. They understand what the plan is going in, when to block, when to not block, when to just take it because their turn's going to be better. It's not Unga Bunga play 3 of a kind. That is not the deck anymore. There is so many little things you can do And there's a lot of little nuances, right? Like, hopefully I'm not calling anybody out right now, but I was just playing on Talishar because I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to get more reps in, right?
Mhm.
And I was playing against Alexi, and they had put me to go first, and I'm like, okay. So their plan is to load Voltaire at the end of their turn. So I have some windows here to do some things. I had 2 blues in hand, and then a window and a little bit of a window to do things. So I pitched a blue, brought back a Phoenix Flame, played the Phoenix Flame, and then pitched a blue to come in with pitch to come in with a Searing Ember Blade, and they just blocked it. Like, okay, sounds great. And they went and pitched their one of their 3 cards to activate Voltaire twice, and put 2 cards in their arsenal with now no cards in hand. That passes priority back to me. So then I CNC'd their fucking arsenal away. And they're like, oh shit. And I'm like, yeah, I saw that one coming. And that's, he's like, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, yeah, it's a hard one. And walking into it is something that you really don't play around much. You don't think about much, but I have definitely played against Lexis that do. And when they're kind of on that level of how do I get blown out here, and they just play around all those different blowout scenarios, those are really hard to beat, because as far as a hero without a weapon, she's very efficient. And
She is very efficient.
I honestly think that, like, depending on what the Ranger cards and Outsiders look like, she very well could be A tier or S tier coming out of that set. Because if they, like, we already know that one card in Codex of Frailty is going to at least give the ability for her to need to demand a 2 block, late game, by putting an Endless Arrow in Arsenal and just shooting it. That's a 0 for 4. That's a way to start demanding cards again, and then maybe be able to keep a 2-card hand. So if that's the kind of thing that we're going to be expecting, is things that kind of give Ranger a little bit more, she's going to be dangerous. Maybe even and maybe even Azalea too, but let's not hold our breath. It's Azalea. So sorry to the cult, but
Yeah. All the ice heroes are very solid right now. I will say,
was that a pun? I think that's a pun.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay.
I will say that I was moderately impressed with the Reinars, both at the Realm, but also at the ProQuest that I went to and I played in, because I think that it's either more people are finally getting past the, like, oh, it's just the die roll that determines the game, and they're putting in reps, but I think that people are finding that is potentially a way to, like, crash into Oldhim. Being able to go through the tall blocks with Intimidate and do it relatively consistency. I mean, you're not doing it like every turn by any stretch of the imagination, but even if you're doing it like 2 or 3 times, as long as it's at key intervals, you can really put some pressure on the old man. And that is a really big deal right now in this meta, because I think Oldhim is, again, he's just kept in consistency. He's like one of the best picks that you can take, which is why I was trying to pilot him. But like I said, the draw, it just like ends your day, unfortunately, unless it's at the end of the thing, because of the way the tiebreakers work. Like, you're just brutalized. So
yeah,
sad.
I mean, I'll have that criticism for probably ever with Flesh and Blood's tiebreaker system, is that a loss in round 1 is almost an end of your day, and then draws are just losses in basically the first 2/3 to 3/4 of a tournament. So at that point in time, it's just, I don't know. Like, I think that can be better, but that's nothing new. We have talked about that before. But one of the other really interesting things here is that Briar only had 9 wins on the weekend, on the first weekend. That's only 18 points. That leaves Briar at 940. And if Briar stays on that exact same pace for the next 3 weeks, Briar will not living legends out with outsiders, depending battle hardened and calling results. So won't living legend out from pro quests. I hate it. I really hate it. And my problem is not with Briar. I think I don't have a problem with Briar. I hate Rosetta Thorn. I just despise that stupid thing, and I want to see it gone. I want my Dread Scythes and Galaxy Blacks to be a real thing again. Maybe even Nebula Blade if you're feeling frisky. But no, I'm just sick of Rosetta Thorn. I want it gone.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
could
so
see
wrong?
that. I don't think that's wrong. For me personally, as much as Thorn has been a thorn in my side,
Nope. God, no.
Channel Mount
Bad.
Heroic is also something that kind of gives me nightmares at times. And let's be honest, Briar is the only reason that that card is alive right now. So I wouldn't mind not having to worry about being smacked for, 7 go again 4 or 5 times in a single turn, or whatever it ends up being most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's set up right, it definitely can be that.
Yeah.
I get it. And you're right. Like, Channel Mount Heroic basically has the same text as Channel the Thunderstep without Briar, which is a blank text box. So that's, yeah, I understand. And getting high rolled by Briar is never a good feeling in any way, shape, or form, because you feel like you had no agency in the game. And I get that. But I still think the most egregious part of that deck is Rosetta Thorn. I think the most egregious thing that Runeblade has right now is Rosetta Thorn. But I mean, Viscera is also kind of just unplayable. So at the moment, there's that too. But
I guess so. Yeah. This is going to sound a little weird, but part of the reason I think more okay with Rosetta Thorn is that at least every now and then it causes bricks, because people, in order to activate it, they're running that kind of like half and half split, and so you'll run into situations like, I think about the battle hardened, where we were watching Brody play Dark Odious. Man, he's gonna kill me for saying Dark Odious instead of his real name, but anyway. We were watching, those two play each other, and Brody basically had like back-to-back hands where he just drew 4 non-attack actions.
Yep.
So while I hate Rosetta Thorn, it at least kind of also introduces inconsistencies. I say kind of because, let's be honest, it's a slim margin, but there's at least some drawback there.
Yeah, there is.
It's small though, and I won't cry when it's gone, I'll be honest.
No. It is fun that Oldhim has crested the halfway mark to Living Legend, is sitting at 578. We could, if Oldhim keeps clocking in with 60 points a weekend, sits in the 700s with battle hardens and callings, like you could see Oldhim get there. It is possible. Everybody else is well out though. There's no real worries. Currently, there are still only 2 heroes with no living legend points, and they are Azalea, Ace in the Hole, always locking it down with the last place finish there, and then Arachne the Huntsman did not have any finishes. So those are our 0 living legend points heroes currently. Levia with her 20 gets to always have her own spot there.
Yeah, that was for just week 1 though, right? Because I think I'll have to go back and check. I think one of the many Flesh and Blood Discords I'm in, somebody said that a defensive Arachne converted one of their local pro quests.
Would be amazing
from somebody,
because
they either converted or they were for sure like in the finals, because I was trying to get a list from them, because I think that's the way to play Arachne right now until we get more assassin cards. Because the quality of assassin cards is just not, I think, high enough to go the aggressive route. And if you're jamming in a bunch of the good aggressive generics, like at that point, why are you just not playing Briar? You're just hurting yourself.
Right.
Yep. Whereas if you go the defensive route and you really like lean into the fatigue strategy, I think that there's at least a better chance to be successful.
Sure.
Because most of your generics for the defensive cards are just much easier to play above rate as well. Like you're never, if you're already in a defensive game plan, for example, you're never really upset if you draw a Sync, you draw a Fate Foreseen, you know, like
yeah,
those are fine. Whereas, you know, you start jamming in stuff like Command and Conquers and Erase Faces, like they're great cards, but they're not great in every matchup and they're not great in every situation either. Like I know Command and Conquer is always touted as like almost the gold standard and it's really expensive and everyone feels like it's a required card and it has some blowout plays. Command and Conquer Pummel, absolutely brutal. But for every time that happens, I think we forget the times where we just, you know, pay 2 to swing for 6 and like that's the outcome.
Or that you block for 3. Like
yeah.
I've blocked with a lot of CNCs.
I've blocked with a lot of them too, especially, I mean, that's the one nice thing is it's a popper. So there is that. But yeah. I guess my point is like, I know that gets the attention because it's the flashy one, but just run your like, you know, $1 commons because they're $1 common for a reason. Sync Blows, Fate Foreseens, they're good. Oasis Respite, just jam them. Do it.
Winter's Grasp. That's a 2 for 6 at the red, right?
No, Winter's Grasp is the ice 3 block.
Yeah. Isn't it also a 2 for 6? In its red?
Oh, well, yeah, I think maybe like in its red, but
yeah, it's a 2 for 4 and it's blue, and I think it's 2 for 6 and it's red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so that's basically Command and Conquer, right?
Yeah, thing. Absolutely. Same thing.
Same card.
I mean, it's an ice totally fuse, so it's probably better.
That might be better, yeah. I just might be.
I hear the ice heroes are bonkers, so
yeah, that's absolutely stunningly oppressive. Which is why it's a good thing we have a banned and suspended announcement coming up in a week on January 30th. Darick, this gets exhausting, but are there any changes you would want to see
for the banned and suspended
the B and S announcement?
You know, it's announcement. Is there any changes I want to see? This is probably pretty controversial, but I'm going to say no. There are definitely cards I think that are incredibly powerful. I think that there are cards that are, you know, way above rate in some cases. Like I think Crown of Seeds is still an absolutely amazing card. It's like the reason to play Oldhim, for example. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that powerful cards necessarily mean like broken cards to the point where we have to remove them. Like the absolute reality is that most heroes should have something that makes you want to play them, whether that is, you know, a powerful piece of equipment, a powerful attack, right? Like if you're a Bravo nerd like me, we love playing Crippling Crush, right? I think every hero needs something, and so as long as it doesn't put you so head and shoulders above the rest, then I don't think it's that much of a problem. Now, it's very easy to look at the success that, you know, Oldhim and Icelander and whatever have enjoyed recently, but when we look at not just the wins, right, but when we look at the top 8s, we have a very diverse meta, and for a card game, it's incredibly diverse. 9 times out of 10 traditional trading card games, you have the rock, paper, scissors, right? There's 2 to 3 decks. It's usually 3. It's a triad. They eat each other in a circle, and you do your best. Here, we, I think, have better representation than that. I think there are degenerate things in the meta, but there's enough degenerate things that it's one of those moments where you just kind of feel like everything's degenerate. Like, yeah, Icelander's amazing, but you can also like just get Fide, and, you know, Dromai's amazing, but you can get Channel Mount Heroic, or you can get Reinhard or whatever. So I don't know that anything really jumps out at me as needing a change. You know, with Briar so close to Living Legend, it would feel weird to hit Channel Mount Heroic or Rosetta Thorn anyway. And if you're really trying to target either of the ice heroes, like, I would understand it. But the problem is that there's nothing you're really targeting that's hitting both of them in a meaningful way. Because the things that
outside of CLF,
right? The things that make both of them strong are wildly different. It's the same. I think it speaks to the design, right? It's the same theme. It's the same style because it's ice and it's disruptive and it's defensive. but it's not like it's the same thing and it's the same card. And as good as Channel Lake Frigid is, I don't think that that's the card that's warping the meta. I think that it's a well-designed card, and I don't think that like I don't think if you're like, okay, well, we're gonna ban that solves the problem, if I'm being entirely honest.
No.
So I don't know. Personally, I would like to see no changes. Just ride it out until we hit Outsiders and then reassess.
Yeah, I think that I think that's actually a cold take. Honestly, I think that's how most people feel. A lot of people will say differently for clicks or views or whatever, because hot takes generate content, right? And I'm not immune to the hot take canon, but my hot takes are actually what I think. I'm not doing it to generate any sort of any views, which if that's the case, please, if you listen to the Combat Chains bracket podcast, I was hammered, but I meant everything I said. Haydendale is very attractive. The only thing I can think of, and I saw Cale McCreath bring this up, and I didn't ever think about this, was Remembrance. On an axis in a game, and Darick, you hit it, in a game where draws are punishing, Remembrance sort of puts you in those game states a lot more frequently and allows for some of these more degenerately turtle decks to just not actually play the game until their recycling pulverizes to win 49 minutes and 34 seconds into the round. So I kind of see that one and hear it, but generally speaking, I don't see a reason to touch it. I don't see a reason to touch the format. We have Indie coming up in 2 weeks. And let's say you made a change on the 30th. You're giving people who are probably have their decks locked in for a calling, and callings are a big deal in Flesh and Blood because there just aren't that many of them. Mm-hmm. And people prepare for these things. People test for these things. They spend time with these things. And so to me, it would be the wrong time to shake things up. To me, if you're going to shake things up, the right time to do it would be at Outsiders. Would be to go ahead and assess some of the problems as you see them, and make sure that you make changes prior to the Pro Tour, which is a month. You're already shaking up the Pro Tour meta by introducing a new set. So if you think that there are problems at that point in time, would be a good time to just say, okay, we think that this is an issue. Up to that point, but no, just don't. Outsiders is going to change things. Sets always do. Some less than others. Looking at you, Dynasty. And but for the things that do, Briar's going to be gone. Oldham's going to be close. That gets rid of two of the things that people complain about the most, and or are the least amount of fun. And then you get two new adult heroes coming into the mix as well at the end of March. Like, I just don't see a reason.
Potentially 3 new adult heroes.
Potentially 3? Why would you say potentially 3?
Well, because Arachne might be a real hero by then. Like, I love you, Arachne, and I want to play you so badly, but you need help, and I'm hoping Outsiders brings it. So
this is what happens when you introduce a hero in a fucking supplemental set.
I mean, maybe 4, maybe Azalea is finally playable. Who knows? Maybe Outsiders is just no. I can't go that far. I'll hope for the spider, but
yeah. I think the problem that you run into with Azalea is that not any, but most cards that you're going to see that would make Azalea better also make Lexi better. And Lexi's already better than Azalea and can play Channel Lake Frigid.
I think that Dynasty was potentially laying the groundwork for how they're going to differentiate the two, specifically by introducing some of the arrows with the aim counters. And I'm wondering if we're going to see more things with Azalea in that direction for, like, she's the aim
counter. The aim ranger.
Yeah. Whether that means specializations that are aim centric, or maybe she gets her own bow, right? Like we know that regular Azalea is being reprinted, right? But it's entirely possible she could get a majestic bow that works with the aim counters that is, meant for her. I think that they have to do something, but I think that is a way that they could like lean into it to really separate the two, because without having cool elemental talents to lean into, I think you are correct. Most of the time, Lexi will just do the same things Azalea does, but better.
Yeah, I'm scared shitless about when they revisit elements again, because they're going to do something that is just like, no, you shouldn't know, bad, don't, why? I've said this before, I'd be so fucking terrified of a lightning ninja. Like, it makes sense thematically, but fuck, please don't. I don't want to have to like
ninja. I want a lightning shadow ninja.
I'll get fucked. Like, there's so many. Like, somebody said, well, a shadow guardian would be fine. I'm like, in what continent is that okay?
No,
because
I'm gonna be honest, I want the light guardian.
I think a light guardian would be interesting, just like a shadow illusionist would be interesting.
I think a light guardian, like as a paladin style character, would be really cool.
Yeah, and a shadow illusionist literally warping shadows would also be very cool.
Hear me out. It's a got a special shield, right? That makes or does something with spectral shields. Like it's literally, I can see.
I used to like you.
Eyes. I know.
Fuck. No.
You know I'm onto something with this.
You are you are right now just trying to speak like things into reality that should not be spoken into reality.
I know, I'm reading the Necronomicon over here.
No, you're reading the inverse of it. You're reading some fucked up light text about, I mean, just they're cops. You're reading a police manual about how to oppress people better. Like, that's what you're doing. Like, that is who you are, I guess. You are a cop. You already called yourself out on it. You're from Detroit.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you're pretty much RoboCop. Like, that's all there is to it. No, please never. With the shield that makes spectral shields. No. Absolutely not. That's not okay. I just want you to be aware.
Like, you have an offhand shield, and it's like you pitch one to make a spectral shield or something, and then you give like a specialization to that hero where it's like spectral shield bash, and then you crash them, like you blow them up to deal offensive damage instead of prevent damage.
Nope. Absolutely not. Nope. That sounds fun. That sounds like you're taking OTK Visceri that you could never kill. No, absolutely not. You're not getting rune chant spectral shields. No.
Listen. Okay.
I did. Fuck you.
I'm RoboCop. You need to comply.
First request, present hall pass. Okay. Well, we do have a skirmish season coming up, so we'll get some Blitz living legend points coming. This skirmish season is probably going to end Oldham and Blitz, because Oldham needs 48 points to say sayonara and Blitz. So that'll be interesting. So it's April 8th through the 23rd. Blitz or sealed, which is interesting to me. Because that means sealed outsiders is something that will be on the docket, and that
I'm gonna hit everyone that I can locally. I love sealed.
Yeah, every single sealed one you will see me at, as long as it's within like an hour and a half, 2 hours of a drive, maybe even 3, honestly, depending how good the limited is. And it sounds like it's gonna be great. We've got some cool shit in this one though, like the prizing. You get there'll be four of each rainbow foil hero of Azuri. Young Riptide, and Arachne Solitary Confinement, which that one's after my own heart. I just love brutality. There's also 2 cold foil azaleas. We don't know if it's young or adult. I'm guessing young, but neither have been done in cold foil before, so that's already intriguing. One to the winner, and then one as a random giveaway, and then 2 Razor's Edge playmats, which that art blown up is ridiculous. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, the Razor's Edge playmat is what I'm potentially most excited about there. I dig the art, and like I said, I want Arachne to actually be playable, and so now I need a cool playmat to go with him in case he is playable.
And
because
don't want to shell out the $100 for a surgical extraction one.
Yeah, I have a Leave No Witnesses one that I was planning on using, and that one's really solid. But
there's the official one. Yeah,
that's the official 3.
Sure, we'll call it that.
We'll call it that.
We'll say that that's the actual number, when we all know it's not. But to me, one there, I guess my guess is there'll probably be in Eradicate playmat on as a prize wall playmat. That one might be very cool, because usually they take some of those other ones, because there already is a Regicide one that was at Worlds. There's Leave No Witnesses that was in SCG, I believe, bundle thing, and Surgical Extraction was the Armory, so that would put me thinking that Eradicate will be a prize wall one, and that one is also very cool. All the assassin art is just fucking awesome. Like, they crushed it with the assassin arts, and then that's what makes me want to play assassin, is that the art is beautifully brutal, and absolutely adore it. The breaking news of the week, as I'm going, oh, I forgot to put Skirmish season in the show notes, and then log on to Fab's website and go, oh, for fuck's sake, people, is History Pack 2 is now announced. It will be out on February 23rd in, I believe, all languages, English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. I thought for some reason that they had planned on releasing History Pack 2 in... Oh no, I guess this is only in German, French, Italian, and Spanish. So they are doing it that way, where it's History Pack 2 will be out in non-English first as a black label starting on February 24th. It's a biggin as far as the set goes, spanning Monarch, Tales of Aria, and Everfest. You got 536 cards, 3 Fableds, so Library of Solana, Corsham, Crossroad of Elements, and Grandeur of Valahai will be those. You have 14 legendaries, which that tracks, 78 majestics, 140 rares, and 301 commons, but no marvels this time around, which is shocking to me, because of how I guess well received that treatment was. I'm shocked that they're not doing it in this one.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is that they're perhaps saving the marvels for the heroes that came out in those sets for either other prizes or other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's pretty popular heroes in that grouping. And so if you were trying to save your Marvel Prism, right, for example, for a key event, giveaway, whatever, blah blah blah, like throwing it into the history pack kind of ruins that. Like the original one, those base heroes I think was fine, but I just, this round of sets, you've got Briar, you've got Oldhim, you've got Prism, you've got so many heroes that are just really big fan favorites that I think they want to do Marvels of them eventually, but probably for something else would be my guess.
They've got a lot of heroes to do that with. So I think a Marvel Ira would get people going. I think that would be something people wanted to chase down. Marvel Kasai is something I would spend way too much money on. The Marvel Lexi, Marvel Oldham, Marvel Briar, all of those are pretty heavy crowd favorites too. So yeah,
I really want a Marvel Bravo like desperately, but
Star of the Show, they already did that.
Oh, I have that one. I don't have one of the Black Label History Pack ones though.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they'll ever do those in English. I think
I don't even want one in English. Like I give me a Spanish one.
Oh, you want? Oh, okay. I mean, I
want like El Bravo.
El Bravo. What if they did a Japanese one?
Yes.
Okay, that's the answer.
You don't even have to say a hero. You don't have to say yes.
Yeah, the Japanese katsu would be the everybody is paying whatever amount of money you want.
No, I'm telling you right now, you do a Japanese Marvel Ira, and then
Jesus, it's over.
Yeah,
that's I think that they have a lot of space to work with there, and I think it's pretty good of them to or not good of them, but I understand judiciously littering these through product releases rather than or tournament pricing or whatever. I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Speaking of more History Pack news, because apparently they're going all in today, History Pack 1 is getting Blitz decks. We get Bravo, Dash, Dorinthia, Rhinar, Kano, and Viserai.
Yes,
and
I love it.
It's great. Weirdly enough, that Katsu and Azalea are the two WTR and Arc heroes that are not part of the History Pack 1 Blitz decks. I wonder why. Oh, wait, they're getting Blitz decks and Outsiders. Never mind. But this will also come out simultaneously in English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. So we are getting that same sort of disbursement that we talked about earlier. And they're also coming out on February 24th. So they're $12 USD as MSRP. So $12 gets you a Blitz deck. 40 cards, hero, weapon, and equipment cards. These are usually pretty good. Honestly, they are a good intro to the game. They're easy to upgrade. It's weird to me because I was just having this conversation at Battleground Cafe this past weekend where they're talking about growing their community. And they're like, and people will come in and they're like, I'm really interested in playing Dash. Can I buy a Dash Blitz deck? And we're just like, those are Arcane Rising. Like, no, you really can't. Or can I just buy Arcane Rising packs and build it? Well, no, because nobody has Arcane Rising packs.
Right.
And then today, literally today, as of recording on January 23rd, they're like, oh, by the way, here are those Blitz decks you talked about wanting, that we literally had no way of hearing you talk about 2 days ago. So this is really good foresight on their part to understand growth and understand you need to get this into the hands of more and more people in order to grow the game. And I think that in one of the bullets in the product details, it really calls this out because it says very specifically designed as a fun and fast way to play Flesh and Blood, perfect for kitchen table gaming. And if that's the directive and that's where they're going with this, perfect. No notes. I am happy as hell that you're doing this. So this is a good affordable option to get people into the game. And it's Euro release, or European territories release is February 24th. Everybody else is April 7th. So what are your thoughts? What do you think of doing this specifically?
I'm right there with you. Okay, so no notes, 10 out of 10. I think this is something that was a long time coming. I've said it several times in the past that we needed entry-level Blitz decks for what I called the starter heroes, right, from Welcome to Wrath, but also just in general, I felt like we needed more ways to give players an entry into the game with any hero they want. Like long term, I would love to see Kasai Blitz decks and Data Doll Blitz decks. I think the best thing that you could do long term, I'm not saying it has to be here tomorrow or whatever, but is have your roster of heroes and have a player say like, okay, I read their lore, I looked at their art or whatever, I I want that one. And then they can buy a starter deck for it, period. Right? Like that should be the bare minimum if you're hero centric, because you're selling people on the hero. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I want to see more. I think it's again something that I have said several times in the past I wanted, but I think that this is the right way to go for sure. Also, as somebody who is very, very excited for whenever we get the PvE stuff, I think that long term, this is pivotal for that as well. Because if you are introducing people to your player versus environment game mode and you don't have quick starter decks for it, because I'm 90% certain whatever the PvE is, it's going to be played with young heroes, because we get stuff, like our Royal Guard and whatever, our merchants, etc. So if that's the case, then specifically for these young heroes, you need blitz decks that you can just sell and say, hey, pick this up, and then you can play the PvE mode, right? With whatever your favorite hero is. So that might even be part of this, right? This might be a foundational building block for if they reveal that later.
And the marketing part of it is incredible, right? Like, let's say that your PvE product comes with, it's up to 6 players, just throwing random number out. And it comes with the villain deck or the adversary deck, whatever you want to call it, and 2 hero decks. Let's say it's Yoji and the Emperor, right? But it can be up to 6 players. So if you just have these blitz decks sitting on a shelf for $12 and 4 other people interested in playing, they go buy 4 blitz decks off the shelf for $12 a piece. Like, this is marketing genius. And I really like that they're leaning into that part of it. They're leaning into the growth. I think that LSS is starting to get sick of suffering from their own success. And these are the types of things they need to do to keep creating that growth around here. And I got into a little bit into, not a spat, but I got into a small Twitter exchange over last week at some point in time about somebody saying that Fab was the Flesh and Blood was a toxic asset. And I was like, can you define what a toxic asset is? Because I didn't get it. And they were talking about how it just sits on their shelf, collecting dust. And I was just like, I have to reschedule events here because we scheduled a draft and we don't have enough product to draft because we fucking bought it all. Like, around here at the very least, shit flies off the shelf. We can't keep it in stock. Like, the stores here, the LGSs here are just ordering whatever they can at all points in time, and it never collects dust. It never is a quote unquote toxic asset. It just sells all the time. So I didn't understand. I didn't get it. Like, and a lot of places, I think a lot of it is sort of the other TCG lifer portion of it. You definitely have Magic lifers, and I get it. It doesn't say Wizards of the Coast on it. You just kind of roll your eyes. It didn't make you septuple your money in the singles market within 8 weeks of release. And that is not good enough for you now. Okay, sure. But, and yes, Magic did that for a while, especially when Standard was a supported format in paper. You get a new set release, people would just buy boxes and start cracking, and then they go straight to the singles case at the front of the store and start trading what they opened in for the stuff they didn't have and paying cash for whatever extra that they needed. And it was just boom periods, and I totally understand that. But those days are fucking dead. Like, dead. Like David Crosby dead. Too soon? Maybe? Okay. But it's weird to me to call it a toxic asset when in my mind, everywhere I look, it just keeps selling. I don't get it.
I mean, anything can be a toxic asset if you do nothing with it, though.
Right. Yes.
The reality is that we find, at least here locally, that the stores that do well with Flesh and Blood are the ones that go out of their way to try to do well with Flesh and Blood, right? We get out of things what we put into them. If you schedule events and you reach out to people and you start a Discord that says like, hey, you know, we can talk about when we're getting together, what the formats will be, blah, 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 you're going to have more people show up. And if you just put it on your website and then don't do anything, you don't run, you know, demo days and how to plays and whatever, then nobody's going to show up and start playing. You can't just expect the game to do the work for you. And I think that's the real problem, is that some of the intellectual properties in the gaming space are big enough now where they do the work for you. Yeah. Right? You don't have to sell Dungeons and Dragons to people because the IP is doing that for you. You don't have to sell Magic anymore to people because the IP is doing that for you, right? But that wasn't always the case. And with many new games, that's also still not the case. And so some stores will continue to recognize that. And so they will, you know, water their plants, feed them Miracle Grow, and then they grow into something beautiful. And other stores just let their ficus die in a corner because they they do nothing with it, and they can go ficus themselves. So that's where I'm at.
For fuck's sake. No, and you're right. I mean, like, there's no it's Newtonian in the way it's built. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What you put in is what you get out. And it at some point in time, if LSS gets around to it, I'm available for consulting and or writing if you need me to, developing their IP into something more fleshed out, that with books, comics, graphic novels, animated series, live action series, for that fucking sake, ever since everything's basically humanoid.
I don't know why, but I just had the epiphany. I didn't think of it before, but hear me out. Here's the pitch, LSS. I know you don't listen to this, but on the off chance that you do.
we do know that we actually have listeners in New Zealand, and our numbers in New Zealand are pretty good. So there might be somebody there.
Well, Alex, I love you, buddy. If you're ever listening to this,
he is the best.
Over at LSS.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to you. Listen, let me write a graphic novel, and we'll get the art to be done by Darick Robertson, well-known comic artist of The Boys, artist of recently Batman books. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff. I'll send him a message on Twitter, and I want a book that says by Darick and Darick, because Darick Robertson's like one of the few people on the planet who spells their first name like me. That's actually how we connected on Twitter. So I just need a book that says by Darick and Darick, and I want it to be some graphic novel about, you know, Dash, Arachne, Azalea. I'll write something for the pits for you. Let's make it happen.
You know, I think that's a good pitch. Get the double D's
I even
involved.
have writing samples I can send you. I did some stuff in the past, so
yeah,
let me know.
Sounds great. As far as us and our shameless self-promotion, merch is on the way. I've seen the mock-ups. I know they exist. I will have a link potentially in the show notes for this show. If not this show, there will definitely be a link in the show notes for next show. And also, as soon as the store is live, we will have the link in our Discord. So if you're not in our Discord but want to get some of that sweet fat merch, oh god, oof, that's a curse statement. Please join our Discord, and have all the information there as well. So if you've ever wanted to advertise our show by paying us money to do so, you will have every opportunity to do so. And
at that point, it's not hashtag no free ads, because it wasn't free.
It wasn't free. So we're following through, just like when we talked about Dagan White's deck guide. It turned out to not be a free ad because he just provided it to both of us for $0 subscription. So technically he paid his ad fee.
I would like to just say that the merch thing is very exciting, but I know it came up in the Discord. I'm sorry to report this first round of the merch. When we were doing the testing for the product, the quality control, The Speedo did not hold up to the rigorous testing that I put it through. So the fat Speedo that was requested in the Discord, I just need to let you know, it won't be available this time around. I have more testing to do until I'm satisfied with one.
Jesus. This is like, do you think that the art for Crippling Crush should just be an eggplant emoji? I mean, I gotta know. Is that what you think it should be?
No.
Are you sure?
And it needs to also have a Photoshop of Tommy Fresh's face on it.
Yes. Well, I'm not cutting that out. So we have 2 listener questions this week. So 2 is good because we have some pretty good quality questions here. First is from Iron Meg 44. Speculation time for a legendary generic glove. What would you like to see? And ask the same question with boots. Darick, what do you want to see?
See, this is tough because you have to find something that is relevant and appealing to everything when you put it on a generic, right? Crown of Providence is as popular as it is, and then Skullcap was as well, just because they were generically useful. Find all the same thing. Everybody loves resources. People like the sync effect. People like having, emergency arcane barrier or more health. So for gloves specifically, I would like to see something. I don't know if it's you pay through it for an activation or if you have to sacrifice it to get it, whatever the case may be. But I think it'd be neat if we had something that gave a quicken token. The idea being that you get fast hands, right? You do something with your gloves and it speeds it up.
That sounds like boots to me.
I know that you were about to say that sounds for like boots, but I feel like putting it on the gloves opens things up a bit more, because if you put it on the boots and it's not excessively like more powerful, then you start running into the like, why am I just like not running snaps? Right? It needs to be something that provides something different or new, or allows you to potentially add some redundancy, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the reason that I'm not immediately jumping to boots. Now, if it's not something like a quicken token, I just like that, again, that idea of like fast hands or whatever. If it's not something like a quicken token, then I struggle, because I feel like the gloves are like the weird wild card equipment, because they don't really have a running theme the way some of the other ones do. You get everything from like Goliath gauntlets to gambler's gloves. Usually gloves are just some sort of bonus to attack one way or the other, just in different shapes and forms. You do have the Goliath gauntlet, but you get things like stubbies or cracker or Shuko, right? Like there's a lot of
Mark of
gloves.
Lightning.
Yeah, grasps, some
shock
way that
charmers. We can keep doing this all day.
Yeah. So yeah, shock your charmers, everybody. Zip. So if that's the actual running theme, is it's like a boost of damage, but you're also trying to do it generically, then it's got to be something just like slightly better than an existing thing. Like I think about what is it, Mark of Lightning or whatever, where it's you sacrifice it to add 1 damage.
Yep, that's Mark of Lightning.
So if it's that, but also has like 1 armor and battle worn, or like something equivalent to that, probably good enough, if I'm being honest, to run it in the legendary generic slot. But that's just not exciting to me. So that's why I was like, well, what do I want to do that's different? As far as boots go, I don't think we're ever going to get generic legendary boots, because guardians exist. So
yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with that. I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get it.
Yeah,
I don't even have an idea, because I've just resigned as a guardian player that I will just never have them.
No,
play barefoot.
Absolutely not. There's my thought on gloves was something that that basically had the Fate for Scene effect. So more as like kind of a play on sleight of hand, so like a blade break or temper block 2 when you block with it, opt 1 if it's temper, opt 2 if it's blade break. Just something along those lines that gives you a little bit of, a little bit of block, or not a little bit in
So
this
you
case, a
want
good amount of block.
gloves of providence. So it's
Sort
a
of.
2 armor blade break, but instead of the sink below, it's the fate for scene.
It's the fate for scene version. I think that'd be fine.
Fair.
I think people would play it.
That would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not better than Metacarpus Node for the wizards,
No, the ones that I was immediately thinking would potentially want that were like Azalea, where you
Ranger.
care about the top card of your deck.
Ranger. Which I think that's totally reasonable. So yeah, I mean, I think that'd be fine. I'm with you on boots. You cannot make a legendary boot that's any good, unless you just remove Guardians from the game, because they already kind of have it all outside. They walk around barefoot, but everything else is well stacked. Like,
yeah.
And if you give them something good in the foot spot where they just get to do the thing, like, can you imagine if Guardian had like something similar to Valiant Dynamos with just a way to take the counter off every turn or something? Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
That is just terrifying.
Or even like Black Tech.
Yeah, you can buy it back.
Buy it back somehow.
Yeah, if there was something like, if you dominated an attack this turn, remove the counter, just like, no, absolutely not. Like, no. There's nothing you can do with a foot slot because of Guardian and how it exists. Like,
I mean, I will say maybe you do print a generic boot that's decent, but then you also in the same set just print Guardian boots that make you not want to use the generics.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, you could do that. That's also terrifying.
I've been saying for a while what I really want is like a 0 armor boot, but it makes it so that all your crush effects have a threshold of 5 instead of 4.
Oh, sure. Like, that's pretty good. I also, interesting. I also think that you could do something along a 0 with that sort of has a 0 block that has an effect that allows you to not pump resources, but to pump cards into its block in some meaningful way, whether that's like putting a hand from your card into Arsenal increases its block value, or something along those lines, where it just basically interacts with a weird way with how a Guardian would build their hand so that it's not quite as utterly busted in half.
So yeah, so the interesting thing, it doesn't help Guardian, but what I immediately jump to would be something along the lines of when you block with it, you could put a card from your hand into your pitch, but instead of it generating research, like that's just what you do. You put a card from your hand into your pitch, and then the boots get either +2 or +3 armor.
Right.
Now the reason
you stay in the fatigue plan. Yeah.
Yeah. You stay on the fatigue plan. The reason I say like +2 or +3, +2 makes the most sense because then you have the decision to make on like, am I spending the card to get more block versus going with the fatigue? But I also like
have it scaled to red, yellow, blue.
Yeah, it could be that. There's a couple of ways that you could do it, but I do like that idea for the fatigue thing. Or I mean, it could just straight up be that you discard the card even, and then you upscale it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be +1 at that point in time.
Right. That's what I mean. You upscale it, so
it would turn your blues into 0 for 4s. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. Like,
no, I mean that would be insane. I was
actually
think that might
just be too good.
I was just thinking like you could maybe do something like that, but then you would still have to give it like battle worn so that it got less and less over the course of the game. Yeah, so
it shrank. Yeah. I don't know. That seems
too strong.
Fine. Like
I don't know. As a Guardian player, my gut instinct says even that might be too much. Like I'd have to put some games on it because that feels really, really good.
Yeah, and some of those games where you're just using, you know that you can keep this going to fatigue. You just get to do that over and over and over again would be a lot.
Well, what actually stands out to me is that it gets around many of the effects that. So like. Dominate, for example, it's technically the equipment blocking,
right?
it makes whatever card is left in your hand from the Rhinar Intimidate stuff be a lot more effective. It gets
Sure.
around Dorinthia because, again, not from hand, so the reprise doesn't trigger, right? Like it's so many like net positives that I feel like it would need a stronger
Yeah,
drawback.
but if they increased like if they went and printed generic cards with piercing effects that are good,
Yeah,
like
possibly, or
there
more
are
stuff
ways
like
there are ways to
Shred or
print your way
whatever.
through
But
it. Yeah, there are ways to print your way through it. But I agree with you that does sound a little too good. Our second question is from Teacher Dance. Do you think that we will reach a point where each class will have a legendary class / talent specific equipment for each equipment slot? And do you think that's a good thing? I personally think that eventually we will get there for classes. I don't think we'll get there for talents. But I do think we'll get there for classes. Jury's out on if it's a good thing, mainly because Guardian and Runeblade exist, and that will always scare the living shit out of me. Runeblade technically does have um, a piece for every slot that is good enough, and not legendaries, but you have for legendaries you do have Spellbound Creepers and Grasp of the Arknight, and then Majestic you have Skeleta when it's legal, which thank God it's really never legal, and they don't have a legendary or Majestic headpiece. And even
but
if you took
if you're
Grasp,
Briar, you still get like
fucking
Crown if you
Crown,
want.
right?
Just no
Like,
big deal.
yeah, NBD just the probably second best headpiece in the game right now, or best depending on your class. I think that Crown of Providence gives it a run for its money, but
I don't know. I think I would run Crown of Seeds in every deck I could
I don't.
if it was an option.
I wouldn't run it in like Ninja. I would still run. I guess specifically, I wouldn't run it in Phi. I'd probably fucking run it in Katsu though.
I was just thinking. I was like, I would run it in Katsu. Phi,
Yeah,
I can say no, but I would run it in Katsu.
yeah. Do you understand what a generic Crown of Seeds would do to Dromai?
Oh, I do.
Like what? No, absolutely never.
Here's the thing. It would make my list of 80 for every hero, no matter what.
Sure.
Just because it is such an important tool against Icelander.
Yeah.
Because it gives you a way to pay without an action point to pop Frostbites, so that it's that much harder for them to combo at the end of your turn. Like, so good.
It's kind of unreal.
Yeah, so the short answer is I do think at some point we will have stuff for every slot, for every class. I don't think that it's a good or a bad thing, because even right now for classes that have generic options and class options, the choices are not necessarily cut and dry, right? Like, how
They're
often
not.
do you see Oldhim running Tectonic Plating, right? I
You
run it
don't.
a lot in my Bravo, but like Oldhim, I mean, I see them every now and then, right? But like, I'm not saying that like that's good or bad. It just is. It's an option. It's a choice. It's the same thing with like, Phi can run Tunic or Furnace.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it changes depending on the matchup and whatever. And so as long as the options are there and there's, some level of parity, I think it's fine.
Okay. Like, I think that's totally reasonable. But yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, it is Crown of Seeds is problematic, but it being an Earth card keeps it from being horrifying. And so I think that I mean, you can't really do another thing with Crown of Seeds.
Yeah, until we get our Earth Brute.
Why?
Because I just have nightmares about brutes with Channel Mount Heroic, and also being able to on their own turn use Crown to ramp up 2 extra resources to help pay for their rock after they dump their hand.
Thanks, I hate it.
and now you're going to have the same nightmares that I have.
Yeah.
And as I think about future elemental like talent class pairings, and Earth Brute makes sense to me thematically, so I just assume that will be something I hate in the future. Sorry.
I had a dream earlier about finding loose Star Wars CCG packs still hanging from pegs at a store, and getting excited only to grab one of them off the shelf and the package said contains raw shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you just described was a bigger nightmare than that. So I'm out. I'm just 100% out on Earth Brute. No, absolutely not. Like,
yeah.
Nope, we're done. Red Autumn's Touch. Jesus. Okay, well let's get out of here. I think let's give a shout out to to some producers of the show at our $5 associate producer tier. We have Andy. Thank you very much for your support. At our executive producer and on up, we have Chris, Nick, Josh, Mike B, Teague, Ed, Kenny, May, Philip, and Taylor. If you would like to be a member of our Patreon, the link is in the show notes. We have 4 tiers to examine. You can also visit the Patreon at patreon.com/fleshandpod. All the information is there for you to support. I still need a picture of Charmer so I can update the banner. But whatever he sends me dick pics. The last one was Dick Cheney. And I'm just terrified what the next one will be. So let's not do that. You can find me at Logan Peterson on Twitter. Also running the @FleshAndPod Twitter @FleshPod. Typically, I've just been talking shit about whatever I want to talk shit about. Sports has been, again, kind of a big topic recently with the NFL being in the playoffs. But we have a lot to talk about as far as Flesh and Blood right now, too, with ProQuest season, abandoned suspended announcement coming up. We have Calling Indy coming up. We have a whole lot going on. So please join us in our Discord as well. That link will be in the show notes. You'll also be able to find, oh, God damn it. He sent me a fucking dick pic. God. Okay. Now, I've got it. I can't not find out who the dick pic is this time. If it's actually a cucumber, I'm going to be upset. Oh, Dick Tracy. Oh, good. Oh, good. Warren Beatty at his finest. And all right, that happened. You can also find Darick and I on the Instant Speed podcast this week with our buddy Flake. We'll be recording that tomorrow, which usually comes out on Thursdays, I believe, on YouTube, and Friday on all other platforms. Then what else do we got going? We just have a whole. Oh, you can also go to the Combat Chains Bracket Breakpoint special, where I was part of the panel yet again, breaking down the Goliath Gauntlet. I said a lot of out-of-pocket shit, of which about 90% of it made the show, which is very terrifying. I am still on the verge of being canceled and wondering how Charmer gets gigs while being associated with me. Where can they find you, Darick?
They can find me on Twitter at that Charmer. I'm just Charmer on YouTube and on Twitch. I'm also just me for some reason. Going to be on Tommy's show this week. We're going to record that on Wednesday. I'm just doing all of the shows this week. So
welcome to the family, buddy.
If you really like me, I'm sorry. Give your therapist a tip. They deserve it. But also you'll be able to find me on just about any show you want.
Yeah, it seems like we're doing the rounds right now. It kind of feels like people were waiting to see if you stuck.
Yeah, I get that feeling. Like, you know, are you going to fire me or not? Oh, Logan's keeping him. I guess let's talk to the guy.
That was never going to be the danger. The danger was never you or me firing you. The danger was you quitting after a week and a half or whatever. Like, that was the danger. You're not. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. So that is the way this goes. And now people just expect you to be here. So you really don't have any out. Your parachute is gone, sir. You're on this plane until it hits the mountain. But really, that's all I got. Darick, do you have anything else?
No, I think we hit it pretty hard this week. Let's let him
We
go.
we did. Let's let you get out of here and have a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.